Hi guys, my name is Megan. Welcome back to my teeny tiny corner of the internet and YouTube's where I talk about books, mostly science fiction and fantasy. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is Tchaikovsky's newest novel. And this is a very light-hearted science fiction buddy quest story. But even though it's very light and there are moments where I did definitely laugh out loud and have a little giggle and roll my eyes a few times, it's definitely going to be something that covers more dark and deep themes about humanity, about free will, about finding your purpose in life. And instead of just talking about like general dystopia and like the fate of humanity as a whole, even though we are discussing AI kind of taking over where humanity failed. But that's not really the theme of this story. The theme of this story is really about self-preservation, free will, and finding your purpose in life. This is not a spoiler. This happens very early on in the book, but we are introduced to our main character, and that is Charles. Charles is a valet in a manor, and he is just going through his daily tasks, clicking them off one by one, setting aside his master's wardrobe and going through his travel itinerary, even though all of this is pointless because his master hasn't left the house in over a decade, but he still has to check these things off the list. One of those things includes giving his master a shave, changing him out of his pajamas into his day wear, maintaining the car even though the car never goes anywhere. So some of these tasks are kind of pointless, but Charles does them anyway because it's part of his routine and his programming to just do these sort of things. But something went wrong, and at some point we discover that Charles has murdered his master. He admits to guilt right away. We go through a bunch of bureaucratic hoops with robot police and other members of the household, and he doesn't really get in any sort of trouble. He just leaves. Charles doesn't have anything to do anymore. His whole purpose in life was to be a valet at this manor, and now Charles doesn't have a purpose anymore. So now Charles, who eventually becomes uncharles because he no longer has his name because that was appointed to him by the manor, is on this quest to find a new purpose in life, and his only purpose that he can think of is to serve a human, is to be a valet or a butler for a human. And we find out also very early on that there aren't many humans left. All of the manors and mansions around him have fallen into disrepair. Robots are rusting in front yards, watering lawns, and we don't see any people. We just see that the world has broken down. So this is a dystopia, but this isn't like the doom and gloom dystopia where people are fighting for a morsel of food, at least not the parts that we're covering. We will see a bunch of humans in this book, but not in the way you would expect. Charles, on his quest to find his purpose in life and seek a new employment, meets the Wonk, a very apparently dysfunctional robot who tries to convince Charles that he has caught the protagonist virus, a virus that some of the AI service modules are catching, which allows them to have free will and make their own decisions and break against the robot binds, where they can just take over where humanity failed and left off and create a robot utopia. But robots kind of got tired of being the servants for humans, and they took over and murdered their overlords. And the Wonk is trying to convince Charles that he doesn't have to seek employment. He can go do whatever he wants. And Charles is kind of still in denial about all of this. So we just are following these two that are just building a bond as much as two dysfunctional robots can in this dystopian wasteland. This is, at its core, a science fiction quest story. The Wonk is on a quest to find the answer for why humanity failed, what happened to the robots to make them just go against humanity, and Charles or uncharles is trying to find a new purpose. So we're following these two along their journey to libraries, to sources of knowledge, to military base camps. We're following them along so they can get the answers to these questions. So if you do like quest stories and you do like buddy stories, this is definitely in there. But while you are gonna laugh, and this is a quick read and a wild ride, this is really about what it kind of means to be a human being, what it is to kind of have your purpose in life, and how important is that? How much does free will really impact us? What will we do to get what we want while still kind of playing by the rules? How important are the rules? And we're wondering if this is really about AI or if this is about us. because there is a quote at some point in this book that humanity at one point, the point we're at right now, is working so hard to behave like robots. It's weird that we even developed robots at all. So even though robots don't have wants or desires in the same way that humans do, we see Charles kind of going through a robotic existential crisis. We have moments where he's going through these loopholes and overriding his logic circuits to achieve the goals he apparently really does want, even though they might not be the most logical. We see him trying to find loopholes for self-preservation, even though he no longer has a purpose, and maybe the most logical thing for him to do is to just sit there and rot away. We just see him like, I do want to survive. I do want to do things to help the wonk find their purpose also. So we see him and we're kind of wondering, is this AI actually intelligent and an independent thinker? Did Charles actually get the protagonist virus, or is he just following all these logic circuits? What's really wrong with the wonk? Why are they so independent and so encouraging of Charles to be a free thinker on his own? And we do figure out what happened with the wonk very, very early on into meeting them also. But we really do see, with the help of the wonk, our AI robot Charles developing a conscience and a sense of self. There is a lot of character development in this story, as much character development as you can have with AI. There is a really great relationship bond building storyline to this, also as much of a relationship bond building you can have with a defective robot. I really liked seeing where this goes. There are little plot twists in here, but you know what they are right away, so I don't really know if they're plot twists. You figure it out pretty much immediately, and then it becomes part of the storyline and kind of the underlying joke in the storyline, and then becomes a very integral part of the story. So it's not really a plot twist. You figure it out pretty immediately, but it is kind of fun to see it go. It is very fun watching the relationship between these two dysfunctional robots grow. And the different segments of this world, I think, are really, really well defined. I think the dystopian aspect of the world isn't all doom and gloom, even though it's very doomy and gloomy. We don't really feel depressed reading this. We have a really good time exploring this technological wasteland, but it is really fun. We see like military robots, we see librarian robots, we see nun pastoral robots. We go through a lot of ridiculously bureaucratic loopholes. And it really is just a great time. I think this story will really make you think at the end. So this is, like I said, it's a really lighthearted story, but it is one that's going to make you think while you're reading it. You are going to pick up a couple fun quotes along the way. And I think this story really did what it set out to do, which is just take you on a fun quest and make you think. I think pretty much anybody can read this story. This isn't something that comes with a lot of trigger warnings, unless you don't like, robots going at it with each other. I mean, like fighting each other, not like spicy robots. But this doesn't come with any trigger warnings. I think this is very readable for anybody. I think if you're just getting into science fiction, that this is another really great place to start. The vocabulary isn't too intense. The themes aren't too intense. You don't have to come in with a notepad. And there are little quips in here that are references to other books, not to other science fiction books. There's a couple of those, but I'm talking about their quips to like The Wizard of Oz in this book. And it's just a really fun time, and it really keeps you grounded. And I think most people will enjoy reading this. This is also one of those books where I think people that look their nose down at people that read science fiction and sci-fi can kind of read this and understand the benefits of this sort of fiction and see that it does have a bigger meaning, because the bigger meanings are laid out right in front of you, and it's not something you have to seek like, oh, this might be a metaphor for this. Like, no, it's a pretty clear statement. And I think this is one of the novels that's a really strong, significant message that people that don't even read the genre will really appreciate. All in all, I did give this a 4 or a 4.5 star. I stayed a couple days to think about it. I don't want to give it a 5 star because I know it's not going to be readable for everybody. I know this isn't what everybody looks for in science fiction, but if you do want to read like a quest story set in a dystopian world, and you want some lighthearted fiction, and you want some lighthearted fantasy and like a buddy tag team duo sort of thing, this is a really, really fun read, even though it does cover some like doom and gloom topics, and it does cover some heavy subjects. I really do recommend it. I had a great time reading it. I will always pick up Tchaikovsky. I think he is just brilliant in what he does, and I think this was another success from him. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.